It is very clear to anyone with a critical eye, or at least a shred of honesty, that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. Now, he, of course, is the billionaire financier who was connected to a pedophilia ring, which the media yet doesn't want to actually admit to. But it's very obvious that it's actually there. Now, one of the questions that somebody might ask is, how did this go on for so long without anybody saying something? Because very clearly this was an open secret and everybody knew about it. Well, the answer is by covering it up. Now, here's something very interesting that happened. An NBC News anchor, Amy Robach, was caught on camera on a hot mic, which she didn't know was on, actually talking about this situation. And she revealed, accidentally, that she had come upon this story 3 years ago and had all the evidence to prove the criminal activity of Jeffrey Epstein, but it was stopped by her own network and what she alleges are threats from the royal palace. Now, this recording was eventually leaked to the right-wing organization Project Veritas, where it was then given to the public.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Now, obviously, Robach is in a serious amount of trouble for saying this, even though it's absolutely true. The network, of course, doesn't want the fact that it was covered up put out. So what she's done is made a public statement saying that, well, we did have this, but it didn't meet our editorial standards. We couldn't verify it through secondary sources, etc. Even though in the video she admits that they had all the proof necessary to prove the claim. They had everything they needed, and the network deliberately squashed it. And then she says, well, there were no threats being made, when clearly she admitted that there were threats being made. This is, of course, and I believe her being told to retract her story in order for the network to try to save face, or else she's going to lose her job or possibly get sued, etc. Now, the person who leaked this originally worked at ABC where it happened, but before it was leaked had moved on to another network. And it's a good idea that if you're going to leak something like this, you get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as possible. Who now works for NBC. NBC has fired him for leaking that information. There was an internal investigation at ABC. They determined who it was that actually leaked it. And then NBC decided to fire the guy for something that he had leaked from ABC. There you go. Now, one of the interesting questions that a lot of people who probably aren't digging into this very much is, why would they fire him? Well, essentially, there's an unwritten code that you don't go against what your publisher, in this case, ABC, or the parent company, Disney, you don't go against what your boss is saying. And they're setting the example that you can't go and work for the competition and get away with it. Because every company has an incentive to keep whistleblowers quiet from exposing things that they have done. Like, even if you go somewhere else, they're still going to make sure you get punished for doing it. So it's the networks knowingly covering stuff up and then punishing anyone if they expose it. The thing is here, it was just ABC that got exposed. And I don't believe that this ends at ABC. I think that investigators in a lot of these major news corporations did know what was going on and have also told to be quiet. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form that this is an exception, not the rule. But if this isn't proof of a cover-up, what is? I mean, Jeffrey Epstein is already dead, and a private pathologist that was hired by his family says that it was not suicide, it was very clearly murder by strangulation. I mean, that's already suspicious enough as it is. And now you have this major media outlet with all the resources that any investigator could ever want, all the money and connections to investigate things, deliberately covering it up. That's exactly what this is. This is a very blatant cover-up. The large media outlet pretending this never happened. Now, there could be all kinds of reasons for this. They could be worried about getting sued. Or Jeffrey Epstein may own a portion of the company. I don't know if they do. Or maybe some of the people at the very top of the company were passengers on the Lolita Express, and thus in their interest to pretend that this never happened. There could be all kinds of reasons. But I think it's very clear from the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was so well connected to the elite in the world that this was blatantly being covered up. And the guy who leaked this figured, okay, well, now it's out. Everybody knows it wasn't a suicide. Now's the time to release the information. And despite that, he was still punished for it. So we should, kind of keep that in mind. I mean, we know the mainstream media is corrupt. They lie pathologically. They lie for their own interests. They lie for the empire, etc. But it's still very interesting to see them get exposed like this, because this kind of wakes up a lot of the regular people who still think that he wasn't murdered and still think that the Clintons didn't have anything to do with this, or the Trump administration. I don't believe that specifically the Clintons or Trump had him killed. I think there's a very wide net of very powerful people who have these kind of connections who would want him dead. There's a lot of people in the ruling elite that wanted him dead, and I don't think we can really pin this on any one individual in their circle, because I think it's important overall that he was silenced to protect them as a class. So that's the recent story that's come out. Although, interestingly, it hasn't been broadcast that much by the mainstream media. There has been some reporting, but a lot of it very small and done very quickly and then goes away very quietly. It's almost like this is something that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know that's going on. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.